This is content to send to the International Sangha, and respectfully to the Lumbini Development Trust (LDT) and Lumbini Buddhist University. Dear everyone, today I want to reflect on a phenomenon, as well as a danger to the Lumbini Sacred Garden, which is mainly managed by LDT Lumbini Development Trust. The Lumbini Sacred Garden is facing a risk due to a group of people wearing multicolored robes and staying at the Cambodia temple area in the Lumbini Sacred Garden, Nepal. In this content, I will give specific analysis, as well as examples of ways to react to this multicolored robed group, and those reactions are considered as a model to deal with this troublesome multicolored group. First of all, this group of people wear multicolored robes and shave their heads with an appearance easily mistaken and very similar to monks of the Theravada tradition. The leader of this group is named Thichming Tuwe, or also known as Liang Tu. This group of people comes from Vietnam, and they have traveled through many countries such as Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, and currently are in Nepal. In Nepal, they also came to Lumbini more than a year ago. Then they moved to Kathmandu, and currently they have returned to the Lumbini Sacred Garden for nearly 3 months. The special thing about this group of people is that they want to practice in a reckless way and do not follow any framework, rule, or tradition. They do not follow the laws of the host countries they pass through, as well as they also break the most basic principles of practicing the Buddha's teachings. For example, Mr. Thichming Tu, also known as Mr. Liang Tu, he used to destroy and tear up his identification paper, which is document to prove his citizenship status when he lived in Vietnam. When this group of people want to practice, they shave their heads and put on robes by themselves, and not a single one of them has a preceptor, instructor. When wanting to leave home according to their way, they will shave their heads and wear multicolored robes like Theravada monks, and when they do not want to, they just take off those clothes, and when they want to, they put them back on, etc. That is their way of practice, and this is not allowed in the Buddhist tradition for thousands of years. Because, to leave home to become a bhikkhu in the teachings of the Buddha Gautama, that person must have a teacher and must go through an ordination ceremony. Thus they are a spontaneous practice group and have no rules. They do not follow any rules. They like freedom, and that freedom breaks all legal regulations, challenges all social rules, as well as goes against the moral values of current human civilization. Not only do they shave their heads and put on robes themselves to practice in their own way, they also challenge the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha and distort monks belonging to the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha. Thus, they not only break social principles, but they also have a very negative and one-sided view, to the extreme, towards the practice of all monks belonging to the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha. This is a very negative attitude, and they challenge all monks belonging to the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha. They call monks in the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha Ma Tang, meaning monks who are sons of Mara, the demon king. They call Buddhists who follow and practice under the guidance of monks in the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha Ma Tu, meaning Buddhists who are also children of Mara, the demon king. This is an act that erodes faith in the traditional society of Vietnamese people, who highly value the values of Buddhism. It erodes and distorts faith, making faith waver in the hearts of Buddhists and those who love Buddhism in Vietnam, as well as Vietnamese people living, studying, and working abroad. Not only that, they appeared in Vietnam about more than 2 years ago, and from then until now they have propagated that they are practicing Dhutanga. But the practice of the core members in this group follows a way that is not only ascetic and extreme, but also different from many other ascetic practices that we often see in India and many other countries, especially in the Himalayas. Unlike such ascetic monks in that, besides asceticism and extremism, they also harm society, they cause many consequences, as well as have bad intentions towards society, as well as towards organizations, including the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha as I just mentioned above. Thus, their practice is both ascetic and extreme while going against social values, opposing the Buddhism of Vietnam and risking opposing the Buddhism of all countries in the world. Because this group is associated with a group of YouTubers and a media system planned in advance, they are associated with the media, so they regularly use YouTube channels to broadcast toxic messages to our Vietnamese community for over 2 years. Fortunately, 99% of us Vietnamese have awakened from this toxic phenomenon named Thichming Tu phenomenon. 99% of us Vietnamese have finally luckily awakened, and there are only a very few people who have blind and extreme faith, and they are people with bad intentions who currently still support this group. They have a deviant and extreme faith and a bad intention that our Vietnamese community has seen very clearly. Therefore, today I am a Vietnamese citizen, and also in my capacity as a bhikkhu in the teachings of the Buddha Shakyamuni, I also want to share with everyone, including the International Sangha and the leaders of LDT, Lumbini Development Trust, and Lumbini Buddhist University, LBU. I want to convey to you an awakening of our Vietnamese people, the Vietnamese community at home and abroad. I really want to convey what our Vietnamese community has awakened from this evil phenomenon named Thich Minh Tuệ phenomenon to the international community, especially the international Sangha community, so that this group will not affect first of all Nepal, where this group resides, and then all countries and territories where bhikkhus, monks, reside. Through my reflection today, I hope that this group will not cause negative impacts on the Buddhism of the countries and territories where the monks are present. Next is to clarify how harmful this multicolored robed group is, what things they do, and how they harm the host countries they pass through. Currently at the Cambodia Temple in the Lumbini Sacred Garden, this group is recorded to have more than 40 people wearing multicolored robes. The view of this group is that they consider the present to be the Buddha's teachings' ending age, the period when the teachings of the Buddha Gautama no longer exist, so that they can build a new Sammasambuddho, rightly enlightened Buddha, and none other than that new Buddha is Mr. Thich Minh Tuệ, or also known as Leang Tu. They call Thich Minh Tuệ, or also known as Leang Tu, a Sammasambuddho, rightly enlightened Buddha. Meanwhile, looking at him in all aspects, he is not an orthodox bhikkhu. He is not a Buddhist monk. In 2024, the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha issued an official document stating that Leang Tu, also known as Thich Minh Tuệ, is not a Buddhist monk and does not belong to any monastery managed by the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha. And secondly, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, he shaves his head, puts on robes himself, and has no preceptor. Therefore he is just a male layperson in the Buddha's teachings, an ordinary Buddhist practicing layperson. But cruelly and sinfully he puts on robes like those of orthodox bhikkhus, so that he and his companions, about more than 40 people currently residing in the Cambodia Temple in the Lumbini Sacred Garden, go on an alms round as well as receive daily food offerings from people who are considered Buddhists. Not only that, they exercise the privilege of bhikkhus in the Buddha's teachings to receive offerings from Buddhists even though they do not have the status of official bhikkhus. They receive all offerings, and then they even ask those considered Buddhists to go shopping for necessary items and pay for all travel and accommodation expenses in all the places they pass by. This is something that harms people who have faith and are willing to offer and help monks who have no property for their spiritual practice. But they have been completely deceived. Their faith has been deceived by this group of people. Secondly, the multicolored robed group put on a performance to show that they are hard-working practicing monks to squeeze out the compassion of people with faith. Due to that deceit, they have gathered a very large amount of money that our Vietnamese community estimates can reach tens of billions of Vietnamese dong, or even hundreds of billions of Vietnamese dong, millions of US dollars, by displaying the scene of hardship to squeeze out compassion in people with faith. In the teachings of the Buddha Shakyamuni, compassion is also called karuna, compassion in loving kindness and compassion. Compassion in some religions is also called mercy. This multicolored robed group displayed a scene of hardship, like people facing difficulties and needing help. Not only that, even worse, they displayed they are the true practitioners and sleep-sitting, instead of lying down to exploit the compassion and sympathy of followers, so that they can profit, scam, and make those people contribute huge amounts of money. And this is an opportunity for scammers and exploiters, bad people, to unlawfully fleece the property of others. And the third thing to mention is very toxic statements and sharing sessions via YouTube's channels. It can be said that just sitting on the territory of Nepal to share religious content through internet platforms has signs of violating the anti-conversion law of Nepal. In detail, they give content that goes against Buddhist teachings and has the nature of opposing the Buddhist teachings very clearly, that our community has identified with a uniform awareness in the community. Some examples I mention are as follows. Mr. Leang Tu, also known as Thich Minh Tuệ, said, "Most professions are scams. A doctor examining patients and collecting money is a scam. This is unacceptable and goes against all moral values of all cultures in the world today, of countries in the world today." He also said that going to school is suffering, meaning that going to school is something not to be done, and he propagates to listeners not to let their children go to school. He also encourages YouTubers following him that they can fight and cause violence against others if they feel that is happiness. Because of his agreement and support, YouTubers actually organized a fight in Bodh Gaya, India, and one person has been prosecuted and arrested by Vietnamese authorities in coordination with Indian authorities in recent days. And there is still another brawl where 4 people are currently still banned from leaving the country and are stranded in India and cannot leave India, waiting for the handling and trial of the Gaya Court of India. And many such clashes come from statements supporting and agreeing with fighting by Mr. Liang Tu, also known as Mr. Thich Ming Tu. Dear everyone, thus we can see that Mr. Liang Tu and this multicolored robed group have been causing very alarming consequences. Propaganda, especially propagating false information and going against the Buddha's teachings, is something that needs to be condemned. And not only condemned, but today I want the international Sangha to react strongly and quickly to this Thich Ming Tu phenomenon. Because we are also easily affected by compassion and mercy and think that they also have a practicing mind, so we facilitate this group to operate. But dear everyone, with all my respect for you, I affirm to the international Sangha, this is a group of fake monks and a group that harms society, and most especially this is a group that opposes the Buddha's teachings. I call on the international Sangha community to act fast enough and strong enough to prevent the harms caused by this group of people to the country or territory where the monks reside. Through the content I just shared, to conclude my content and message today, I would like to mention how this group will cause harm to the places this group passes through, and some reactions considered typical and very good models to prevent the negative impact of this group. First, they are nourished and provided with facilities thanks to sponsors, most of whom are Vietnamese sponsors or overseas Vietnamese at home and abroad. These groups of people, out of greed for blessings, provide for a group of people whom they do not research carefully. And even those called Buddhists for many years are also deceived and cheated by this group of people. Why so? Because first, this group of people has an appearance like Buddhist monks. But the content inside is not at all like that. More than 40 people wearing multicolored robes residing at the Cambodia Temple, Lumbini Sacred Garden, have absolutely no bhikkhu ordination certificate, or so-called leaving home certificate. Dr. Hari Rai, Head of Information and Communication Department of LDT, Lumbini Development Trust, knows very well about this. Because he went with me to check the papers, and was answered that in that group of people there was not a single person with ordination certificate. Thus, they do not have bhikkhu status. But at that time, Dr. Hari Rai of LDT did not have any significant handling and let that group of people still operate in the Lumbini Sacred Garden. He, Dr. Hari Rai, also told me that those groups of people are also monks and I am also a monk, so why do I pick a fight with those groups of people? This is content that can be said to tarnish the honor of Buddhist monks, and is a shocking statement to Buddhism. And I am informed that these multicolored robed people, although they are not Buddhist monks, are still allowed to enter the Maya Devi temple, the holy site where the Buddha was born, without paying a fee. That is a privilege that the Lumbini Sacred Garden applies to Buddhist monks. So what is the point of my ordination as a bhikkhu, when I am treated equally with the so-called thief-like group of multicolored robed people? That is about the statement of Dr. Hari Rai, Head of Information and Communication Department of LDT, Lumbini Development Trust. With the outward appearance easily mistaken for Buddhist monks, we have warned many times to LDT, to Lumbini Buddhist University, LBU, and to authorities including Lumbini Police, but most of our warnings were ignored. That group is almost still operating without any hindrance at the Cambodia Temple, Lumbini Sacred Garden. We also especially condemn here the visa sponsorship of Lumbini Buddhist University. Thanks to the one-year visa sponsorship at Lumbini Buddhist University, this multicolored group can operate and broadcast false messages contrary to the spirit of Buddhism, as I just mentioned in the previous part. Not only that, due to the visa sponsorship of Lumbini Buddhist University, this group of people can distort and insult the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha. And also due to this visa sponsorship of Lumbini Buddhist University for the multicolored group, which is a one-year study visa, that this group can deceive and gather very large amounts of money from Vietnamese Buddhists around the world to serve this group, from a bite of food to razors and all other living facilities, while they do not practice at all to be able to increase blessings for those who donate and offer to them daily. Thus in this video I have raised specific issues and risks of this group. I call on the international Sangha to act fast enough as well as strong enough to this phenomenon. Before ending the content, I want to give some model examples for ways of handling and reacting to this group of people. First is the example from the reaction of Thailand. In Thailand, when this group passed by, the National Office of Buddhism of Thailand issued a message sent to all Buddhist temples nationwide and warned for vigilance. They issued a message warning of the harms of this group to the Buddhism of Thailand. This is a very strong reaction, And after this announcement of the National Office of Buddhism of Thailand, this group was handled and asked to leave Thailand within 7 days. Next is the example of Sri Lanka. As I mentioned, this group has bad intentions and they are very stubborn, as well as they take advantage of the multicolored robes like the Theravada Buddhist monks, so they deceive authorities and agencies, making the reaction slow, and when reacting, authorities are very timid. However, after Thailand, as I just mentioned, the next in Sri Lanka, the Sri Lanka Buddhist Sangha strongly reacted and protested against the presence of this group in Sri Lanka. Similar to Thailand, shortly after, Sri Lankan authorities intervened in a timely manner for this group to quickly leave Sri Lanka. And currently, Vietnamese people and the Vietnamese community worldwide have promptly awakened and are sharing information and damages caused by this group, including profiteering and swindling money from Buddhists. Not only that, there are indecent behaviors towards women. Because they, women, believe that everyone following this group is good, they lose vigilance and are exploited almost to the point of being physically violated and emotionally harmed. And I also warn the Lumbini Sacred Garden and especially LDT, as well as Lumbini Buddhist University, LBU, one thing, that is, if you do not respect the warnings of our community. Specifically, I myself have repeatedly sent emails to LDT, to Lumbini Buddhist University, LBU, and at that time also attached to the UNESCO office in Kathmandu, Nepal, as well as government agencies and Lumbini's police and agencies. But most of the emails I sent were ignored. Therefore, I warn LDT and Lumbini Buddhist University, LBU, that if you do not change your perspective and do not respect the warnings of our community, including me, you must bear full responsibility and the consequences that this multicolored robed group causes to the country and people of Nepal. To the international community joining hands to protect the holy site, which is a World Heritage, Lumbini Sacred Garden, as well as you must be responsible for the influence of this group on Buddhism in all countries and territories in the world. And especially you must be responsible for the opposition of this multicolored group against the Vietnam Buddhist Sangha. This is the responsibility that LDT, Lumbini Development Trust, and Lumbini Buddhist University must shoulder. Our Vietnamese community is seeing Lumbini very ugly. Because authorities have signs of receiving so-called grease money, in Vietnam we call it sympathy money. Almost this is bribery by authorities, including the Department of Immigration in Kathmandu, and Lumbini authorities including Lumbini Police, and of course including LDT and Lumbini Buddhist University, LBU. Lumbini can receive some money from the sponsorship of this multicolored robed group to monasteries because they come there to offer. Lumbini can receive more money through charity drives organized by this group, but in return Lumbini will lose the value of one of the most important Buddhist holy sites in the world and can be considered a national treasure of Nepal. And Lumbini will lose a number of tourists, which I mention as a large number of tourists coming from Vietnam. Because our community is seeing that Nepalese authorities clearly have signs of taking money from this multicolored group to facilitate this multicolored group to operate in the Cambodia temple area in the Lumbini Sacred Garden. I would like to send a warning as well as call upon and prove clearly that the expenses and amounts of money Lumbini is receiving are too small compared to the losses Lumbini will have to bear because of the loss of this image, because of the indifference of authorities, and because of the silence and non-intervention of LDT and Lumbini Buddhist University, LBU, although warned by us many times. All these indifferences and inactions have been making Lumbini lose points in the evaluation of the Vietnamese community. And even more specially and terribly is the systemic indifferences of authorities from Kathmandu to Lumbini. This is not what I say, but this is the reflection of our entire Vietnamese community, monitoring the activities of this group. Finally, before ending, I earnestly and respectfully request the International Sangha to pay attention and be extremely vigilant against the activities of this multicolored robed group. Although operating in Nepal, the consequence of this group on global Buddhism is something that cannot be ignored. I condemn, the Vietnamese community condemns, and the Buddhist community worldwide must condemn. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention and listening. Wishing everyone good health. Thank you very much.